It was only his third Prime Minister's questions. And certainly he didn't seem as on form as the last one. How much do you think this resignation by Sir Gavin Williamson has impacted him?
You're right to say it's his third Prime Minister's questions, and he had another tough wicket to defend, if you like. And as you were saying, really, it looked like he'd had the stuffing knocked out of him. He just wasn't as on form, as combative as I have seen him before. You know, it was a very difficult position to defend. I mean, and Keir Starmer was brutal there. The opener being, does the Prime Minister think, how will the victim have felt when the Prime Minister expressed great sadness at the resignation? He then said that Gavin Williamson, he described him as a pathetic bully and criticised the Prime Minister for giving him power. And then he pivoted that to the Prime Minister himself, saying that it was a sign that he was so weak as a boss that he was worried that the bullies would turn on him, and he hid behind them. I mean, it was absolutely damning from Keir Starmer towards Rishi Sunak. And how did the Prime Minister respond? Well, what was interesting about this was the tone he took publicly in the House of Commons whilst facing MPs was very different to the tone he took last night when he accepted Gavin Williamson's resignation. You know, Number 10 made it clear that the Prime Minister accepted it. He didn't ask him to resign. Gavin Williamson, as I understand it, went to see the Prime Minister in the early evening of last night after these new allegations had surfaced. This complaint was made formally to the parliamentary watchdog by this senior former civil servant who has alleged that Gavin Williamson told them to slit their throat. And as the allegations piled up, Gavin Williamson took it upon himself to resign. Now, the Prime Minister, in the tone of the letter, was pretty warm to Gavin Williamson, but there was an about-turn today, and I think that raises questions about what is the messaging of Rishi Sunak and how he handles this stuff, because in the Commons, he said it was absolutely right he resigned. And then he said, I obviously regret putting him into office. And then he said, my government is showing the public that when these things arise, I'm quick to deal with them. But he defended Gavin Williamson for days. So where does it leave him? It's a Prime Minister saying on the floor of the House, and he said it repeatedly, this is a government of integrity, professionalism and accountability, while at the same time, in the first 2 weeks of his premiership, questions about professionalism and accountability have been raised again and again over 2 appointments he made. I mean, he knew that Gavin Williamson had a live allegation of bullying against him, and he put him back into cabinet. So I think there's a few things from that. Number one is, what is Number 10 trying to say about this? On the one hand, they were warm about Gavin Williamson last night, and now the Prime Minister is changing approach. So it's just confusing about the kind of messaging that they want to get out. Number two, his question, of course it calls into question his judgment, and it's undermining for him. And number three, this is a Prime Minister desperately trying to reset his government, and he has just got brought down and into issues around culture of Westminster and conduct of ministers and people in his government, exactly the sort of problems that brought Boris Johnson down, problems that Rishi Sunak said that he wanted to turn the page on. And I think it also finally, Sally, speaks to the divisions within the Conservative Party. There was lots of anger about Suella Braverman being reappointed. There was anger in the party that Gavin Williamson had been given a cabinet post when there were widespread rumours and discussions amongst MPs about conduct. And all of it gives Keir Starmer these really powerful attack lines to try and defenestrate Rishi Sunak as a weak Prime Minister without legitimacy. And every week he just has another reason to go at him for that. And that was not a comfortable session at all for the Prime Minister.